Wait for it. Wait for it. Right there. That thing that Gary Moore is playing, that thing that is fast, flashy, interesting, is a lot more than that. It's super powerful, and it's not for the reasons you think. And so the first time I paid attention to Gary Moore was in the mid to late 90s, and it was because of this song. All we could talk about was the note. You know what I'm talking about, right? This right there. And man, I just love that song. I loved it so much that I tried to learn it, note per note, kind of. Because truth be told, I always skipped the super fast parts. See, I had only been playing for, I think, 3 years at the time. And back then, it was not that easy to find accurate tabs. We didn't have all the Guitar Pro software and things you could slow down with. It was just a lot harder. But I covered the song anyways with my band. Yeah, it was a cover band. We played every weekend in different pubs, and we'd cover classic rock stuff. And I thought we did a fairly good job. At least the audience seemed to enjoy what we were playing. Granted, we were playing pubs in the south of France. But that was until our good friend Richard showed up with a camcorder, and he recorded the gig. So the next day, the band and I show up at my place with the VHS tape, put it in the tape player, and we listened to the gig. It was pretty bad, especially that Gary Moore song. See, I thought that was the highlight of our set list, and it was probably the worst cover I'd ever heard. Now, the song was somewhat recognizable because I was playing the main theme kind of okay, but those fast parts, those parts I never learned, I was just relying on my version of the minor pentatonic scale. And I just kind of filled in that space with some non-tasty licks. Now, there was something really interesting. That song, which was not a good cover at all, still had the right notes. I was still playing the important parts of the song. It was really only the fast parts that were not the same. So the next day, I got to work. I painfully went through the original version of that song, slowed down every part, especially those parts that I had avoided all those years. Now, what made those parts so difficult to learn was not only the speed at which they were played, but the fact that if you listen to those parts, they're not really planned. See, in those fast parts, Gary Moore is just improvising. And those parts are kind of the automatic go-to phrases that Gary uses. But I kept working on it, and eventually I realized that some of those licks kind of made sense as far as the fingering goes. See, there was a logic behind some of the movements, which is why they were kind of automatic to Gary's playing. And you can kind of hear the same type of automatic movement throughout Gary Moore's career. And understanding what those movements were made these licks way easier to memorize. Check this out. After understanding that, things got a lot easier. And as a matter of fact, not only was I replicating the licks that Gary was playing, but I was also able to kind of make up my own using those automatic movements. And it became way easier to inject them into my playing. So I started using those automatic movements in my own improvisations. And I noticed something really interesting. So there was a shift in the attention that the audience was giving me. And what's weird is that they weren't necessarily paying attention when I was playing those faster licks, but they were paying a lot more attention when I was playing those easier melodic movements. Adding those flashy, shreddy, faster licks to my playing made the audience a lot more receptive to those melodic moments. The reason is contrast. Prior to working on those Gary Moore licks, I didn't have any contrast in my playing. Everything I did was pretty much flat. My melodic moments were somewhat melodic, and my fast moments were not really fast. So in the case of Gary Moore, the contrast happens between the melodic, thematic moments and the faster, shreddy licks. But that's not the only way you can do it. There are many other ways to add that contrast to your music. Soft, loud, clean, overdriven, slow, fast. And of course, you can mix and match all those different things. The key is to have that contrast. And once I realized that, I started playing with a lot more purpose, injecting those contrasted moments into my playing, my improvisation, my songwriting, and it really helped elevate some of the important musical moments that I wanted to share with the audience. And so this contrast thing is one of the best things I did for my music, but without a good set of musical ideas, it's kind of useless. And that's why you should watch this video, because here I'm going to give you a system to come up with a constant flow of new licks. I'll meet you right there.